Okay, Mr. Chair, the waiting room is empty. Meeting is being recorded. You're clear to proceed.
All right, thank you. Good evening. I'd like to call the Board of Selectmen meeting to order at 6:32, and this will be a Long Beach listening session. Tonight, we are here to provide Rockport residents with the opportunity to share their thoughts on the future of Long Beach with the leases expiring in December 2023. The Selectmen will take the information received tonight and will consider it as part of a decision in the process moving forward. This is not a question and answer session. It's not a debate. Discussion on options aren't going to happen either. Rather, a chance to share directly with the board each speaker's vision or thoughts on the future of Long Beach. Each speaker will be asked to keep their comments to about 3 minutes. I will allow up to 5 minutes though. Each person will be allowed to speak only once. Each speaker is to state their name and address for the record. Please direct all comments to the chair and keep them respectful and to the point so we can get through as many speakers as possible. The meeting host will track the order and indicate when it is your turn to speak. I'm gonna limit tonight's discussion until 8:30 tonight. If you don't make it, I'm sorry, but please submit your comments and thoughts to the Selectmen's email. And with that, we'll open it up.
Okay, at this time, if you wish to speak, please use the hand raise function or raise your hand in your video. If you wish to speak, please use the hand raise function or raise your hand in your video. Hand raise function is available at the reactions tab by clicking on that and then clicking raise hand. Okay, Mr. Chair, first up, Eric Hutchins. Eric, go ahead and accept the unmute, please, and name and address for the record. We'll start the timer.
Yeah, thank you. Eric Hutchins, 45 Pools Lane. Appreciate you having this meeting tonight. Just a couple of things that jump out. There's obviously a lot to talk about here. But one thing I would like to ask right out of the gate, where it was really unknown really what this meeting is all about, just wasn't information on it, just said listening session. And the opening by the chair was no debate, questions, answers, etc. One question right out of the gate is, when will the opportunity be for questions and answers and debate and analysis together as a community? That has not taken place. And the crucial nature, fiscally, environmentally, etc., socially, pro and con, is of the magnitude that it needs debate, discussion, and analysis. You made it sound like this is a hearing for you to make all your decisions, but I think debate, analysis, and information and questions and answers is needed. So I want to put that right up front, hopefully for everybody on this call. And as far as just a couple of comments about the site, obviously, you know, I've been following it for many years and have participated in the variety of committees and put some information and recommendations forward. I'm a little disappointed just at the overall, as far as I know, I've not heard anything in about 10 months now that's taken place. I assume something has, but it's come on a lull. We as a town, I'm not just saying you Board of Selectmen, we as a town have got to ramp this up, obviously, and rapidly. I made numerous recommendations to the committee that went to the Board of Selectmen as well, and everybody, that we needed to step up with some consultants looking at these sites. And some of the things that I had suggested earlier that I stand firm now is that we need some increased topographic mapping of the Pebble Beach, Cape Hedge Beach, Long Beach area, because those are our 3 barrier beaches. They're all intertwined so that the town of Rockport can actually start understanding what sea levels mean and what they mean in the projected futures in the near and moderate term. I've yet to see good depictions of that area because it's not just Long Beach. All of these are interrelated, all 3 of them as barrier beaches scientifically. Sea level rise is happening faster than anyone thought. Even when we had a meeting a year ago, things are coming in. So we need data to present to the public so that they can then give you educated comments. Like tonight, we actually have had nothing in 10 months to digest. unfortunately. So we need to get some additional information, not just the social and fiscal issues, but a little bit on the science, so that then we can debate it and figure out which way to go and what recommendations to make. And my final thing, which I'll end with, is regardless of what alternative we as a community choose to take in the future, I believe that some level of managed retreat needs to be built in, whether they're sold, abandoned, purchased long-term, whatever it may be, deed restrictions, etc. We need some level of built-in managed retreat, because we will be losing the beaches irrespective due to sea level rise. So we need to factor that in. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric.
Okay. Jenny Amory. Jenny, you're unmuted. Name and address for the record, please.
Jenny Amory, 8 Andrews Hollow. And I just wanted to share that the last I had heard about Long Beach was, the extensive information that was presented by the volunteer committee, which I found really impressive in terms of laying out a lot of issues and then also laying out different scenarios. And my understanding from that presentation was that the recommendation was to get a consultant who had time and expertise to delve deeper. And I believe that there was a grant possibility to underwrite that cost. So I would urge the select board to really build on the phenomenal work that was done and get someone who has additional expertise to help think through those scenarios, and then also involve Rockport residents more as the process goes along. Thank you.
Okay. Next, Laura Evans, name and address for the record. You're unmuted, please.
Hi there, Laura Evans from 77 High Street, and thank you for holding this listening session. I did just listen to the first listening session, which was back in January, invitation only for the Long Beach residents, and I certainly can understand why almost every one of them, 32 of them spoke, want to buy the sand dune that they're living on, and I welcome the opportunity for all the rest of the voters of Rockport to be able to say what they think, because I think we all love the beach, and a lot of the Long Beach tenants said that they've been there 100 years, and I can see where you get really attached. And I think our job now is to look forward to the next 100 years. And what are we going to be like in 2100? What kind of town are we going to be then? And I know we're not supposed to be asking questions, but I have a lot of questions for our elected leaders, because we really need their response from the carefully prepared report of the Long Beach Options Committee. And thanks to Ken Kaiser and the volunteers who put that together and presented it to us in April. And since then, there's been kind of a resounding silence. We really need to hear from our select board about what do they think about the recommended conditional leasing option that the committee put forward. What kind of conditions would be acceptable to them? Where are we with that recommended MVP study? What are next steps has the select board initiated since the delivery of the report, and what next steps are going to happen now? I mean, 2023 is 6 weeks away. What's going to happen after this meeting? What does the select board see as our two main options from 30,000 feet? And what are the pros and cons of those options? What procedures will the select board follow in leading our town to decide what to do with Long Beach, which is arguably our largest asset, and perhaps our most, our greatest liability? And how were these procedures arrived at? We want to understand what the decision-making process is going to be so that we can have a lively debate. I mean, this is really critical to all of us. How does the select board see, when will they be calling on the relevant boards and committees in town to weigh in, and how will those boards and committees be heard? What, if any, recusals are going to be necessary for town employees and appointees as this process goes along? Does the select board anticipate that Long Beach will be the subject of a special town meeting? If so, when will that be? And will that be followed by a popular vote? How are we going to come to our decision? It's going to be great tonight to hear the lively debate that it's not going to be a debate, but the ideas that people put forward. But decision making is not just talking into a void about what your opinion is. It's, we have to come together and agree. And so I think we need to do that. And we also need to understand what level of involvement the select board sees from the Commonwealth and perhaps the feds as we deal with this great opportunity that's before us, or the great responsibility that we have to the generations who will follow us and have to live with the decision that we make in months, it seems like now. Thank you very much for the opportunity to raise these issues.
Okay, Carol Cook. Carol, you're unmuted. Name and address for the record, please.
Carol Cook, 171B Thatcher Road. First of all, I just want to say that due to sea rise, we all have to realize that eventually we're going to start to lose our smaller beaches. And that is why I think it is very important for the future that we do not sell Long Beach, because it might be the only one left for future Rockport residents to be able to use and go to our beautiful Long Beach. Now, I know that the selectmen have to decide on the leases next year, and I am just going to suggest that because we don't know what's going to happen by 2030. It seems 2030 seems to be a point where things are going to get worse from what I have read. So I suggest that I don't think we should sell Long Beach. I think we should continue leasing it as long as it's safe for the tenants, for us to be leasing the property. And I think we should have only a 5-year lease, not a 10-year lease. And it should be clearly stated, a clause in the lease that says that tenants lease this land at their own risk to themselves and their houses, their property. As far as I know, there's no such clause like that in our current leases. And I just think that the selectmen do have to think about if these houses are destroyed by a storm, and we're going to have all kinds of lawsuits, and they're going to be saying, oh, we did not secure the seawall, and that is why their house is thrown into the ocean. So it's very important that you get our legal counsel to write an ironclad lease this time that's going to protect taxpayers from lawsuits that may occur from these tenants if we have bad storms and their houses are destroyed. And I thank you for this opportunity to speak, and I appreciate this is difficult things to decide, and maybe we'll have future discussions later. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. As more join, I'm just going to remind everyone that I asked you to keep it to 3 minutes, but I will allow up to 5 so everyone can get a chance to speak.
Okay, if you wish to speak, please use the hand raise function or raise your hand in your video. Dr. Teresa Rizzolo, you are unmuted. Name and address for the record, please.
Hi, it's actually Beth Sullivan, 4 Summit Avenue. I was at the 2014 meeting, I think it was 2014, when consultants talked with us about how the waters flowed and the sand came in and out and so forth, and what the effect was on the wall. I was at the 2018 meeting when Bruce Reed and Wally Hess, and I can't remember the third person, did their presentation about the wall. And I participated in the webinar with Ken Kaiser's group, and then subsequently read their report. since we're not having a discussion about any of those issues, but rather just, I guess, giving our opinions, based on all of that, and at this point, the only thing I can say is I am not in favor of selling the land, and I'm not in favor of repairing or replacing the wall. I think Laura Evans did an excellent job of really saying that we're in no position to make any decisions based on where we are in terms of conversations and debates. But if I had to vote as of today, based on 8 years of meetings and reports and presentations, I would say, let it go back to nature ultimately. And that's the way I would vote. Would a town meeting be called at this time?
Okay, Tom Meekis, you're unmuted. Tom, name and address for the record, please.
Hi, Tom Meekis, 73 Marmion Way, and I was the vice chair of the Long Beach Options Committee. Let me make points on 2 concerns, and then I'll give you an opinion for what it's worth. First of all, I think this is a public safety issue. The undeniable fact is that all of the parcels are in the FEMA Special Flood Hazard Area. Emphasis on the word hazard. And in more detail, basically the front row of cottages are in the velocity zone, where waves are expected to be more than 3 feet. That's on top of the surge. And the remainder of the back rows are up to 3 feet of waves. And the seawall will not eliminate the hazards because water can come from the back. And the road is increasingly flooded. And in addition to convenience for the tenants being able to reach their cottages, what about the first responders? That's going to be an issue. I think this is about public safety. Secondly, about ecology. This is the barrier beach system. And we, as part of the Long Beach Options Committee, had some webinars where this is pretty thoroughly explained. I'm not going to try to repaint it much of that, other than to point out that a barrier beach system is where a dune protects the marsh. The marsh eventually needs to move with increasing level of sea level. And in order for that to happen, the dune has to move. The dune can't move with the seawall there. The dune protects the marsh. So finally, a matter of my opinion about this, the Long Beach Options Committee was not allowed to make a recommendation. But we have had personal conversations among some of the members. And I know that my opinion is shared by at least half of the members of that committee. And that's that we have to do some form of managed retreat for purposes of public safety and for ecology.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay, if anybody wishes to speak, please use the hand raise function or raise your hand in your video. If anybody wishes to speak, please use the hand raise function or raise your hand in your video. Okay, Ken Kaiser, you're unmuted. Ken, name and address for the record, please.
Ken Kaiser, 20 Jewett Street, Rockport. I was the chair of the Long Beach Options Committee, and we spent a year looking at all the options we could come up with. And there seemed to be no real good ones. Everything we looked at requires more study. Everything we looked at could cause great expenses to the town. And my conclusion, and I think it was put in the report as a suggestion, is that in fairness to the cottage owners and also to the town, that we renew the leases for a period of only 2 years. And this would give the town an opportunity to have a professional study done to really look at all the um, uh, all the issues involved, sea level rise, the seawall, selling, what selling would really mean to both the cottage owners and to the town. And particularly look at the town's liability, no matter what the town does. And renewing the leases for a short period of time makes a lot of sense to me personally, because then we have a better 2 years from now or 3 years from now, we'd have a much better picture of what's going on with the sea level and increasing storm intensity. And by changing the leases, as one of the speakers has said earlier, I think it was Mrs. Cook, we have to remove the town's liability from the leases. Right now, if you read the leases very carefully, you'll see that the leases say that nothing herein limits in any manner any remedies the tenant or the cottage owners may have against the town due to the town's negligence. And then in another phrase, another clause of the lease, it specifies that the seawall is included in a category called non-lease property, which then goes to imply that the town would be responsible for the damages to the tenant property should a failure or inadequacy of the seawall be found to be the result of the town's negligence. That's pretty serious stuff. And if we had a huge storm, the town could see, 50 or maybe $100 million worth of damages, and that's just not anything we want to be involved with. So we should. My opinion is that we should renew the leases for a short period of time. We should get rid of the liability clauses, have the tenants agree that they're leasing at their own risk, and we should start a professional study as soon as we can. Thank you.
Okay, Terry Rizzolo, you're unmuted. Name and address for the record.
Hi, Terry Rizzolo, 4 Summit Avenue. I totally agree with the idea that the town must maintain ownership of this property and the land. I feel, and this is probably unpopular to say, but I feel like we're being held hostage by the idea that because the leaseholders pay rent, that the town can come up with no other source of funding for our town needs. I've yet to really see an adequate, detailed list of the costs to the town of maintaining that property as a rental. My second and probably most salient point is, at least in my own mind, Atlantic Path. We sell that property to those folks. We're going to be facing head-on the same winds that we have experienced the past several years with property owners along the Atlantic Path. They already run it like a country club. If you try to go there to play tennis, there's no parking spots, even though we're supposed to have some. If you want to gain any access with all the new restrictions about fire lanes and where one can walk, etc., I think that's a precursor to what would happen. So I would never support the sale of this property. It is an asset to our town, and it should be enjoyed by all of our taxpayers and townspeople. Thank you.
Okay, if anybody wishes to speak, please use the hand raise function or raise your hand in your video. Okay, Laura Kozacek. Laura, you're unmuted. Name and address for the record, please.
Hello, Laura Kozacek, 293 Granite Street. I'm just following up on those comments that have been made. I attended all of the Long Beach Options Committee meetings, and I've been paying attention to the resource areas there for some time now. I would highly recommend that Rockport complete its its MVP study, which we started some years ago, as some people may here who are on the call might remember and even may have participated in at the community house. That would also put us in a good position for the ability to apply for grants for feasibility studies and other sorts of things that would have to do with this area. And it's so needed. The study that was done by Horsley Witten for Plum Island, for the Plum Island study, was really interesting to me. It was something that's featured in the links for the Long Beach Options Committee, so people can take a look at that. Their final report has not been out, but it is out in draft form and has been almost finished for some time. But what they did in that study, and you'll see it in the videos if you watch it, I think it's in 2 parts, and it's really good, very educational. They looked just at what the cost of the access to Plum Island would be, and then that first intersection and some of the roads daily within about 7 years from now, twice a day, that they would be flooded. So they simply looked at the cost of the millions of dollars per foot, and like tens of millions maybe, of what it would be to raise roadways and the access points. So at some point it kind of falls off when there aren't structures to get to, when there aren't roads that you can raise enough for too much money. So that was a difficult thing, and the study was interesting because they had moderators, which acted as a buffer and a really fabulous help between the communication by the specialists to the people who needed to hear it, those being towns, select people and planners, and all of the people in the infrastructure of the town, of the city of Newburyport and Newbury. So anyway, if you haven't spent any time with it, those of you who are select people, I highly recommend that you give that a look and a read if you haven't done it already, because it's different. Yes, there are a lot of differences, but the prototype is important, and eventually all of this will come down to the money. I noticed some time ago, I took some notes on something that FEMA has had to do, which is a national risk index. This was as of October 2020. And they simply had a calculation that you have natural hazard exposure. That's the representative building value or populations value. That's, infrastructure value times the natural hazard frequency, which is also known as annualized frequency, times the historic loss ratio, which is the area specific estimate of a percentage of locations natural hazard exposure expected to be impacted. And that equals the expected annual loss with a value amount of each year due to natural hazards. So I would like to see people kind of looking at things more like that. There was a study in, I think, around 1990 about optimal setbacks for coastal areas, which was also completely from insurance information. It was very interesting by some scholars from, I think it was University of Rhode Island. Anyway, there were these interesting calculus kind of equations on just figuring out how to do these things. So there's a lot out there. Everybody needs some specialists on this that can really do the number crunching and help plan. And this is about public safety. So that's all I wanted to share tonight. But I thank you very much for this opportunity to have a listening session. Thank you.
Diane Finch, you're unmuted. Name and address for the record, please.
Hi, Diane Finch, 215 Granite Street. I'm going to keep mine very short because Ken Kaiser has already said, and Tom Mikas have already said basically what I was thinking. The only thing I want to add or emphasize is that we did find an excellent consultant who is well known in the state of Massachusetts for working on projects like this. We didn't make the deadline for the grant last year, but we can still apply for it before April of 2023. And I think that given that our committee, as Ken Kaiser said, realized we need more experts, not only for the science, but for the finance, the projections, the policies. And this is what this consultant and the team that she would put together would do, as is being done in towns across the United States that are facing similar issues. We, as the Long Beach Options Committee, we worked very hard and we produced a report, and we're not allowed to give recommendations, but we did collect as much information as we were able to get. But we recognize that we were not experts. And I really hope that the Board of Selectmen realizes also that they are not experts. Let's do a lease of 2 years and get these studies done, and don't do anything rash like selling our largest asset that should be here for grandchildren and their grandchildren down the road. Eventually, there will be no cottages on that beach. The climate and the sea level rise are going to take those cottages out. We don't know when. It could be 100 years from now. It could be 50 years from now. But we have to be smart and responsible and think of public safety, but also think of the future generations and the best, biggest, longest beach, the only beach in Rockport that has the ability to move inland. All our other short beaches, small beaches, are up against roads and walls. So Pebble Beach and Long Beach, we have to make sure that we focus with experts involved and understand the science so that we make a good decision for the future. Thank you for having this. Appreciate it.
Okay, if anybody wishes to speak, please use the hand raise function or raise your hand in your video. If anybody wishes to speak, please use the hand raise function or raise your hand in your video. Mary Devaney, you're unmuted. Name and address for the record, please.
Mary Devaney, 1 Holbrook Court, Rockport. I realize this is this is just such a loaded issue for so many people, including me. We know the people who live on the beach love it and want to stay. We all love the beach. In my family, my husband's been going there all his life. He's almost 80. So, you know, like we did. I took my children there. My grandchildren go there. I would like to think that in the next 100 years that will be available for the town, because it's such a recreational resource. It's just lovely. And mostly in the wintertime is when we go. People walk there, you see the surfers. And my opinion, after having been on the Rights of Way Committee for 10 years, is that the town needs to retain control. Once we lose control, there will be some attempts to restrict access. And it makes all of our properties more valuable. It makes the town more attractive. We hear people want more families with children. There is nothing more attractive to a young family than having a beach they can bring their children to and don't have to go away on expensive vacations in the summer. So my feeling is I do not think we should sell it at this point. And I think we should do the conservative thing and be careful. There's no hurry, there's no rush. I think we need to, as other people have said, different studies, financial, ecological, and wait and see how fast this sea rise situation is. Thank you.
Okay, if anybody wishes to speak, please use the hand raise function or raise your hand in your video. If anybody wishes to speak, please use the hand raise function or raise your hand in your video. Toby, you're unmuted. Name and address for the record, please.
Thank you. Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. I just got onto the meeting, so I haven't heard anything except from the middle of Mary Devaney's comments onward. I would like to repeat what I said at your last Board of Selectmen's meeting, which you won't care to hear. It's nice that you're soliciting public comment, but really we need the framework of it if it's to have any meaning or validity. And the framework would be some statement from you, the board, as to what decisions for Long Beach are in your province and what ones belong to the public and in what context, whether it's a question of selling it or renting it, leasing it. Leasing it, we know, is entirely your purview, but all of that ought to be laid out so that people know, just exactly how much difference their comments may make. It's as though you, as I said before, tell them that you can choose between 57 varieties of ice cream, and once they spend a lot of time fussing and choosing, you then tell them, well, you're going to have vanilla. So I hope you'll make it clear. I gather you're not going to say anything in particular at this meeting, but you need to make it clear at the next meeting just how much use this listening session involves. I haven't heard the other comments, but numbers of people are afraid that if you sell the Long Beach property, we might end up losing the beach. The beach is a separate lot. The only question there would be on the surveying, whether the seawall is on the beach lot or the lot that contains all of the cottages. So unless your lawyers botch it horribly, there would be no possibility of losing the beach. We own it and nobody's offering it for sale, whether or not the town meeting were to choose to sell the cottage lots. What was not made clear to the cottage owners when Don Campbell, your board, was sponsoring the meetings and they were all expressing interest in buying the lots, as the terms on which the lots could be sold. Unless you go to the state and get dispensation, as you did for the alcohol licenses, there's only one way that the property, whether individual lots or one lot, could be sold, and that's to the highest bidder. Anything else requires their permission. So it's not readily done. And the other thing that needs to be explained to everyone is the timelines. Some of these decisions can be made at the last minute and some can't. If you were going to get permission from the state to sell it otherwise than to the highest bidder, you'd probably have to start a year beforehand, I'm guessing. You presumably know. Thank you.
If anybody wishes to speak, please use the hand raise function or raise your hand in your video. If anybody wishes to speak, please use the hand raise function or raise your hand in your video. If anybody wishes to speak, please use the hand raise function or raise your hand in your video. Steve Sheehan, you're unmuted. Name and address for the record.
Steve Sheehan, 12 Long Beach. Rockport residents and taxpayers who live at Long Beach understand the town's challenges, both the rebuilding of the town's infrastructure, the setting a direction for the future of Rockport's public schools, and increasing town revenues. There's been some really wildly misleading and blatantly false comments about Long Beach lessees' positions on the Long Beach. Over the years, this continues, such as us wanting to privatize the beach and that we attempted to deny access, public access, to the 5 entries into Long Beach. Neither of these is true, and the town knows this and can verify it. It's never been anything. And I'm going to share something with the Rockport folks to even prove it. In 2013, Long Beach cottage owners presented a vision in writing to the Board of Selectmen on the future of Long Beach. And this vision included four basic premises, which I think will surprise a lot of people who have been misled. The first was to protect a revenue stream for the town of Rockport. There's a big revenue stream from us. The second is conservation citizenship, that we would work with the town for the future of Long Beach to enhance it. The third one, which is, amazing because it's so misinterpreted in the town, we said we wanted to preserve both the family character of the beach and also public accessibility. It's been 100 years where the owners and the public have enjoyed the beach together, and should continue for another 100 years. In 2013 as well, we also asked the then board if out of the taxes and rent that we pay, if we could set up a capital fund for improvements to be made on the Long Beach seawall that would come out of just the taxes and rent that we pay. And this gets interesting because the then board, instead of establishing the fund, the board decided that they were going to inappropriately attempt to transfer the liability of the seawall for their own negligence, past, present, and future. It would be like if any of you rent, it would be like if your landlord sent you a letter one day and it said, the asbestos that's in the house that you rent is your liability and sign here, please. I think all of you would understand what that felt like. It's never really been talked about in the town. So my point is that was the then selectmen. Why did something like this even happen? How could it happen that 154 Rockport residents were singled out like this? After 100 years of peace and goodwill, there was never any problems. And the reality is, I think, is that there's no shared vision. There hasn't been a shared vision for the Long Beach. It hasn't been established. It hasn't been communicated about Rockport's greatest asset. And by viable vision, you can't have a vision that's going to hurt the town in other areas by taking away $2.5 million of income. You just can't do that for the health of the overall town. There's no shared vision for the school system. And so as a consequence, what happens, and as a Rockport resident, a Rockport voter, which are many at Long Beach, what happens is what we see is select board decisions over the years. And I'll wrap up here. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for a couple minutes here. Decisions are tabled, and then task force are created, and their recommendations are tabled. And this continues over and over again. And even tonight, let's do more studies. Let's do more of this. All of this tabling and all of this postponing is hurting the town of Rockport. We can't even apply for Mass State grants because Rockport can't afford the matching funds. So if and when a vision for the future of Rockport and Long Beach is established by Rockport leaders, decisions supporting that vision would be natural. They can be made then. They don't have to always be tabled. And we can discuss everything collaboratively. The Long Beach folks, when the town makes the decision, we'll discuss everything collaboratively with them and fairly to work towards making Rockport's future very bright. Rockport residents who live at Long Beach are very hopeful that this new board will tackle these problems and not table them like they have been for many, many and too many years. Thanks a lot.
If anybody wishes to speak, please use the hand raise function or raise your hand in your video. If anybody wishes to speak, please use the hand raise function or raise your hand in your video.
Antoinette.
Okay. Antoinette, you're unmuted. Name and address for the record, please.
Hi, I'm Antoinette Giuliano. I'm at 68 Long Beach.
And I too am a resident of Rockport. The house on Long Beach is my primary home. I live there as much as the lease will allow me to live and have to rent out somewhere else in those 4 months. So that is my primary home. I love Rockport. The Long Beach community and the Rockport community mean everything to me and my family. There's been a lot of comments about the liability of the seawall to the town. And as you know, the town makes over $2 million from the Long Beach residents in rents and taxes. The town is not just the town, it is they are our landlord as well. And they're renting the land to us. So you can't expect somebody to pay rent for land unless that land is secured on which we can have our home. In other words, it's really important from my perspective that the wall, seawall, be maintained and secured, since the town is making money from us, and that is their job, is to secure the land under our home. And that includes making sure the seawall stays intact so the land doesn't wash away. And if you've walked Long Beach, you will have seen over the summer a huge crack develop, and it's almost right in front of my home. So I am in danger of losing my primary home to the wall, and it's maybe one good storm away from being washed away. And I'm really concerned about this. And me and my neighbors had put together a letter to the selectmen requesting information about what they had planned to do. As you all may know, there is a FEMA grant that was granted to the town to fix a third of the wall, which would include the most vulnerable part of the wall, which happens to be also in front of my home. And so I would like to see it rebuilt. That would be my opinion, is I would like to see it rebuilt. I would like to see the selectmen follow through with the FEMA grant. And you know, if we continue to neglect the wall and the houses do fall into the ocean, the town is in danger of losing the land rent and the taxes, which is a huge, for a town that's financially burdened, you know, it would be a huge loss to the town. A sale of the land would provide the town, like it did in Ipswich, a significant amount of income for which they could fund a lot of these things, including these studies that we want to use, the schools, the firehouses, the fire trucks, the DPW. I mean, the town of Ipswich alone made a few $1 million just off of the interest that they made from selling the land to those homeowners at Little Neck or Rocky Neck. So I think we have to look at also the fiscal responsibility of the town. And if we continue to neglect the seawall, they're not going to have a choice. It's going to be made for them. And it's going to affect every single taxpayer in the town of Rockport, not just us. So I really think we have to look at all options, including the sale of the land. Thank you.
Z Sepala, Z, accept the unmute, please, and then name and address for the record.
Yes, Z Sepala, 92 Granite Street. Thank you. I noticed Wally Hess moving his hand, Mitch, and he wasn't being recognized. So I just want to bring your attention to that. I think he wants to speak. So maybe after me, you can ask him. My only concerns with the whole issue is that we have not seen any expert opinions on this. The Long Beach Options Committee was composed of a bunch of town residents that did a standout job considering what their backgrounds were, but without really more expert opinions, it's very difficult, I think, for anybody to really pinpoint a good way to go ahead. The other thing is, I would just say that the people that are recommending a short lease decisions or short leases until things become more clear have a very good point. And that's about all I have to say. Short-term leases until things become more clear. And and really try to put forth some effort to get expert opinions. I will say one more thing, and it was Steve Sheehan's remarks that brought that up about long-term visions. We have a planning board that is by statute responsible for doing that. And I think the last time there was anything done in that regard was in 2010 with a town master plan, which was virtually ignored by everybody thereafter. So that's all I have to say with my usual cheery remarks.
Wally, did you have your hand up? Okay, Wally, you're unmuted. Name and address for the record, please.
117 Granite Street. As you know, I was on the finance committee for 9 years. The biggest issue that we had during that period was thinking through what would happen to Long Beach. I was also on the Long Beach Infrastructure Committee. We spent a lot of time studying this and comparing it to similar beaches of other towns in Massachusetts. I can spend 2 hours going through all the detail. I'm going to spend about 1 more minute summarizing the whole thing. If we do nothing, which we've been very good at doing in the last 10 years, then there's a big chance that we can have a big storm. And for sure it's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to happen 2 years from now or 20 years from now, but it's clearly we're going to have a big enough storm to knock the seawall down, the existing seawall. We knocked down the storm knocked down half of it in the 50s, and surely Mother Nature has a lot more power today than she did then. So I don't know what we do if the whole thing under the existing lease or extensions thereof, if a big portion of the seawall gets knocked down and some number of cottages wind up somewhere in the ocean. That's the downside. We have got to prevent that from happening. That's a big downside. It's 30 or 40 million in a reasonable case. The town can't afford that. And under the existing lease, the tenants could argue that the town is responsible for that. The upside is, if you look at other sales of other towns, we could get significantly in excess of $100 million by selling off just the lots underneath the existing cottages. People may gasp at that, but when you look at that is a number that was actually put together by a professional organization 10 years ago. I think real estate has gone up since then, but if we just use the 100 just for the fun and say, gee, we could get 100 if we sold this off and we organize it in a fashion where in order to own a lot here, the investors needed to be part of a homeowners association, similar to a condo association, so that the town would deal with one entity and not 150 entities. So that we could have, we need a lot of professional advice in order to put that all together. But so then when you look at the difference, the town could come up with 100, maybe even in a reasonable case, 40 million of that could go to completely rebuilding the wall. When we were on our committee, we went down to Marshfield and spent a day. They put together and are continuing to do that, an extremely much stronger wall that their professionals are telling it's pretty much guaranteed for 100 years. If we could put together a wall like that with, say, 30 or 40 million of our 100 million of money that we would get from selling the properties, the town would still be ahead by 60 million. And if we have the right kind of contract, we could protect against all of the issues that came up tonight. And I could spend a half an hour going through those, but I'm not going to right now. But I think the town is better off with 100 minus 40, let's say 60 million in the bank, which could be used for other infrastructure issues that are really desperately needed in the town, and get rid of the liability and still have a responsible organization that could run the beach or run the property behind the beach and make it crystal clear that the
30
town
seconds.
still owns the beach. Thank you.
Okay, if anybody wishes to speak, please use the hand raise function or raise your hand in your video. If anybody wishes to speak, please use the hand raise function or raise your hand in your video. Jerry Sharfstein, you're unmuted. Name and address for the record, please.
Can you turn that off? Cindy? Hi, Jerry Sharfstein, 2A Twin Light Circle. I'll keep it very short. Bravo, Wally, for your recommendation. I wholeheartedly support it, and I hope that the elected leaders and whoever is involved in making the decision stop kicking the can down the road and make a decision. Thank you.
If anyone wishes to speak, please use the hand raise function or raise your hand in your video. Lisa Mooney, you're unmuted. Name and address for the record, please.
Yes, my name's Lisa Mooney, 51 Long Beach. I want to say thank you to Mr. Hess. That was a very good plan. And I think, by doing nothing with the wall, we're either going to lose all the houses and people are not going to be able to enjoy the beach. The town of Rockport, the people in Rockport are not going to be able to enjoy the beach. The longer we wait to fix the wall, the more it's going to cost. So I think that we need to look at the wall as the first thing to do here. And I think that the plan that Mr. Hess had recommended seems the most logical for everyone in the town. So I agree with him, and I just want to thank you for having this discussion tonight. So thank you.
If anybody wishes to speak, please use the hand raise function or raise your hand in your video. Mr. Chair, are you taking repeat comments?
No.
Okay. Dexter Johnson, you're unmuted. Name and address for the record.
Hi there, Dexter Johnson, 8 Long Beach Road. Thank you very much for having another listening session. Appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight. I just want to echo the comments of Steve Sheehan. I think Antoinette, said it much better than I could possibly say it. I'm very concerned about the number of times we need to meet, and I feel like the lack of actual action, is going to be our demise. I've heard a number of people that said that they were on meetings in 2010, 2014, 2018, and appreciate all their efforts along the way. I would like to think that we'd be disappointed at this point to not have a solution to this problem. I think the points were really clearly laid out by Wally. And I think we need to start to move things forward. We can't continue to create committees and wait for voting and wait for government action. We know the storm's coming. Our lack of action is going to be criticized in the longer term. When we look back on this, we're really going to regret it. And so those are my thoughts. Again, appreciate the time to speak tonight. And I hope we can start to move this forward in a meaningful way, to have meaningful conversations, debate, collaboration. I think that's the key. We need to collaborate at this point to make sure that we have a successful outcome for the town, because otherwise this is going to be lost. And that is really, really, really unfortunate and unnecessary. Thank you.
If you wish to speak, please use the hand raise function or raise your hand in your video. The chair has indicated he's not taking a second round of comments from individuals. Please use the hand raise function or raise your hand in your video if you wish to speak.
You're not seeing any, Mitch,
I'm not seeing any hands, Mr. Chair.
already. So just to touch on one thing that was consistent through tonight, the board will announce when we're going to have a further discussion or debate, however you want to frame it. This is just the beginning of a process. Also, holding true to the former chairman said he wanted to have one for the Long Beach residents and the citizens as a whole of Rockport. So that's why we're having this tonight, and that's why we started it. We are beginning the process as we move forward. So if there's no other comments, I will ask the board if they have any comments before we adjourn tonight.
I do, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Alrighty.
And thank you for putting this all together. There was a comment about Long Beach, and everything was going great until the last agreement or last lease, which was 10 years ago. And they were woefully underpaying for their leased land, and now it is a shade under market value. So I want to point that out, that was happening. So I mean, this has nothing to do with the wall and so forth, but I just want to make sure that people recognize that prior to 10 years ago, they were underpaying, and now on the leased land, they are a shade under market value. So it is fair. Thank you.
Thank you. Selectman Donnelly, yes, Selectman Lawyer.
No comment.
No
All
comment.
right. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn then,
I'll make
So
a motion
moved.
to adjourn.
and I'll take a second.
I'll second it.
All right, roll call vote. Selectman Murphy,
Aye.
Selectman Lawyer,
Aye.
Selectwoman Donnelly,
Aye.
and Selectman Brackett votes aye. Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Good night.